Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we explore the future and what this means for your leadership. We ask the big questions. What's happening on the horizon? What does this mean for us? And most importantly, what skills do I need now for leadership of the future? It's time to explore. Let's go.
Hello, it's Zoe. Welcome back to the show. Lots of cool things happening around the world on planet human. Guess what? Twitter's in trouble again. I should say X, or as other people are saying, Zitter. It turns out that it looks like X might have been allowing terrorists to buy the blue check mark on X. Oh my goodness. Turns out that amongst some of them are Hezbollah's Secretary General, whose ID was verified on X. Now, since this report came out on The Verge, those accounts have since been shut down. But it raises an important question for us. What is a company's social responsibility when it comes to these types of things? Now, Musk has always been about free speech. He wanted Twitter, now X, to be a place where people could throw their ideas into the mix. Does that extend to terrorists? If you have a terrorist platform, should you be allowed to have free speech? So this has been an ongoing issue, and I'll put a link to this particular article in the show notes for you. This has been a bugbear. Where's the balance, and how much responsibility should a platform have, a platform such as X, which is a place of expression? It's just like, how much responsibility does the internet have to censor or scroll or shut down hate speech? And I think that's something that we need to wrestle with. I don't think there's one rule to apply to all of this. And yet, I think there's principles that we can apply. Should we allow people to express hatred and violence towards other people? We have laws that say, no, you can't go around bashing other people for good reason. We want to have a civilized society. And I think what happened when we went to the internet is that we hadn't quite figured out how those bodily rules applied in a virtual world. The time has come. We've got to sort this stuff out. So that is what's happening on one corner of planet human. On planet Zoe, I'm still in Bali. I am writing away. I have made some good progress on my fourth novel, my eighth book, tentatively called Olympus Rising. And it is fun. It is a fun story. I'm really digging into the chaos of power abuse, rise and fall of different power factions in this fictional world that I have created. In the meantime, you can pre-order Olympus Bound, which is the third novel in the series, coming out May the 1st. You can get a signed copy. Go to my website, zoerouth.com. You get a free bookmark with that and some other goodies that I'm putting together for you. Or you can pre-order the ebook on Amazon, and that would be completely awesome if you did that. It's $4.99 for the ebook on Amazon. So for $5, you can have a year's worth of my work in your hands and a rollicking good ride in the story. Now, my question for you this week is, how can we increase happiness at work? And I'm smiling because my guest today is Lori-Ann Duguay, and she is a fabulous human. She's a fellow Canadian, and I've been twice on her own podcast, People Powered Solutions, and she's a delight. She's a ball of energy and a lovely human being. She's the owner and founder of People Powered Solutions, which is an HR consultancy. She's the author of another delightful book called The Happiness Factor. And she is an expert in using DISC, which is one of the profiling instruments that I use with clients to ascertain what are their behavior preferences at work so we can work better together. We have a great time on this show, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, here's Lori-Ann. Well, all the way from Moonbeam, Ontario, Canada, welcome to the show, Lori-Ann Duguay.
Thanks for having me, Zoe.
I'm delighted to have you. I have enjoyed the 2 interviews I did on your show, which is an awesome podcast. And I love what you have to talk about when it comes to people stuff. We're totally aligned in that area. And I'm glad we could tee this up. So how did you get into this line of work of working with people?
How did I get into this line of work? Okay, I can make this a very long-winded story, or I can give you kind of the Cliff's Notes version, which would be for 21 years, I worked for the same large-scale organization. Would say for about 15 of those 21 years, was pretty much what I refer to as a tenant of the workplace. So basically, I was there occupying realty, but not really doing much else. I just wasn't being challenged. There were a number of things that weren't happening within my workplace culture that made me tick or met my level of hunger when it comes to just work in general. That fueled me to take on a bunch of side jobs to meet that challenge in my brain. Eventually, one of those side jobs had me doing some consulting on the side, working with organizations in talent development and helping them grow their people management infrastructure. Eventually, business got way too busy, was still supposed to be working full time, had to take all my holidays just to do projects, decided to take the leap, try it full time, realized really quickly, seeing that leap happened right in the midst of the pandemic, that there was definitely a need out there and an appetite for people to improve on the work environment they offer their team members. At the end of the day, they were all struggling to not only find that next generation of workers, but also keep them and keep them happy and thriving. So I never looked back, really. I took the leap about 3.5 years ago, never looked back. The business has just grown since then. And ultimately, our mission now and forevermore is to create as many happy and productive workplaces as possible. So that's how I got to doing, I guess it was about trying to help others create what I lacked, the work environment and that I wish I had back in the day, is how I got into what I'm doing.
I think there's a lot of us who are driven by that. This really sucked. I don't want to have anybody else suffer through what I went through. I've been in workplaces like that, but I've also been in workplaces which were amazing. One of the things I was really curious about in terms of your work, and particularly your book, Happiness at Work, this whole idea of happiness at work. And you did actually say, I want to help workplaces be happy and productive. Why did you pick happiness as the main feature of the messaging in your book and your business, as opposed to success or fulfillment or satisfaction or progression? Like, why that particular element?
Why happiness? Okay, so I think I went with happiness for the simplicity of it. People can relate to happiness. They know what happiness feels like, what joy feels like. Honestly, those other terms you just referenced, satisfied, fulfilled. I can be satisfied, but not necessarily thriving at work. I feel like satisfied just kind of denotes that bare minimum of feeling fulfilled. Fulfillment, though, is definitely, I would add it as a synonym of my happy. I think they go hand in hand, happiness and fulfilled. It's that feeling of being excited to go to do what you have to do on a daily basis, to go and work, but also leaving and feeling like you've actually made a difference in the world at the end of the day. So I chose happiness for the simplicity because the book, as well as our 3M model, is really all simple, easily implemented strategies. And even those 10 fundamental needs of an employee are really basic and simple in a way that anyone who picks up that book, anyone who listens to our podcast, understands what are the needs that once they're fulfilled will lead to greater happiness and satisfaction at work. And then they can make a plan to actually create the work environment that provides for those needs. Because at the end of the day, we cannot motivate someone directly, but what we can do is create that highly motivating work environment. And as a leader, that is 100% your privilege and your duty to deliver on for your team members.
I like it. I think this is actually a useful thing for leaders to cogitate on, is what is the mood that we want to create in the business? And I don't think happiness is necessarily one of the words that bubbles to the surface when they're saying, oh, we want a happy workforce. It's like, we want an inclusive workforce. We want a productive workforce. And it
productive workforce, a performing.
Performance, compliant. I've heard that one. We need a compliant workforce or workplace. We need all those things, but happiness is like, that's the bigger meta picture of what really we're trying to do, and there's lots of elements that go into that. And as you mentioned, there's 10 happiness factors that you've put into your book. And I love your book for its very straightforward, implementable suggestions. How did you come up with the 10 happiness factors? I know you did quite a lot of research for your book. Tell me a little bit about your process.
Yeah, I absolutely did a ton of research. Also, just from what I've seen in working with clients, we've done these employee engagement surveys, we've done these exercises, these pulse surveys, whatever you call them, with numerous clients. Interestingly enough, it's always the same 10 themes that come out of them. There's always 10 things that don't seem to be meeting or hitting the mark when it comes to people feeling fully engaged in the workplace. And so that combined with just the notion of my own experience of what is it that wasn't being met. Why was I feeling stuck? Why was I feeling, kind of really anxious every Monday morning? Actually, it even started Sunday nights, knowing I had to go to work the next day. What was the root of that anxiousness? What were some of the things that were missing in my day to day that were leading me to feel like that? And so in exploring that, in talking with a number of different individuals who themselves were feeling stuck at work as part of the research, also doing some focus group conversations to hone in a bit more on what some of these themes are. And again, all of the work we've done with clients where all of these 10 themes always come up. Well, if it showed up once, I'd be like, oh, that might be something. If it showed up twice, it could be something. But the fact that it showed up and those 10 needs showed up every single time across the board tells me that's it. Those are the basic needs, those 10 basic needs that once they're met, will lead someone, if they're all met at 100%, we're 100% happy and very productive and excited to go to work. But I think organizations need to at least strive to set the setting to meet at least 80% of them, which isn't actually very hard. And a lot of organizations are already doing a lot of great things. It's just a question of tweaking, optimizing, and just taking the time to measure and figure out how they're really doing in order for them to be more intentional on how they create and transform their own workplace culture.
That's lovely. And the thing that had me chuckling as I was reading your book was one of the 10 factors is communication. And the reason I'm chuckling, I'm like, really, because I hear this all the time. And from my own experience, leaders are often perplexed that communication is something that they need to focus on. They're like, what do you mean? We communicate all the time. And casting my mind back to when I was an employee at an organization, there really is this chasm of communication between the leadership team and everybody else. The leadership team makes the assumption that because they've talked about it and announced it, that it's super crystal clear that something's happening. Or they can't understand why, as an employee, you might look at the leadership team and think it's really opaque. They have meetings behind closed doors. Who knows what they talk about? And there really is this sort of perception that there's a lot of stuff happening that the rest of the organization doesn't know about. So your recommendation in the book about communication and communicating in so many different ways and different platforms is essential. And even then, you can communicate some more. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. It's one thing to communicate. And I like your example of leaders saying that they've made the announcement, they've told people that should be enough. It's not. What you need to do is Communication 101, confirm that your message was interpreted as close to its intended meaning as possible. So you need to check, confirm understanding. That's that missing link that so many organizations and so many leaders forget to do. It's one thing to communicate. It's another thing to make sure that it's actually landed the way you needed it to.
Yeah, that's the two-way piece. It's like, yes,
Absolutely.
The fruit is pink. And did people actually hear that message that the fruit, which fruit are we talking about? There's multiple different types of fruit, and why pink? Yeah. So communication is an essential secret. One of the things that had my eyes prick up as I was reading the book was onboarding. And the reason is I just had a recent experience with a organization that were briefing their team on how they do recruitment and all the things to take on board. And then you get to onboarding. I'm like, yes, this is great. This is going to set the scene of how you welcome people into an organization and create their employee journey. And their 3 tips were, okay, the onboarding process is to make sure that they have all their official checks done, their referee checks, their police records checked. I'm like, and that's all they said about onboarding. So I had a little giggle about that. What's your take? What are some secrets to successful onboarding?
before I even talk about the successful, I want to reiterate how onboarding will make or break an employee. I worked with a company that when we started to track and measure when employees were leaving within the first 6 months, for those who had departed within the first 6 months, most of them were departing within the first 2 weeks. What does that tell you? It tells you that they were not being set up for success. At the end of the day, I would even use an analogy from the dating world where I've heard this concept called catfishing, where you put an image and you project this whole profile of someone that is absolutely not who you really are. I think that some companies have done a great job at fine-tuning their pitch, their elevator pitch, and at really creating that excitement and planting that seed of just wanting to be a part of that organization throughout the recruitment process. But where they fail is they haven't taken the time to ensure that they've got the architecture to accommodate and deliver on that pitch. So they might have a really great video, great interview process, great communication strategy from the moment they accept through to when they actually, are ready to start. But then they've done nothing to really ensure they're continuing to build on that pitch and to deliver on it. So what a great successful onboarding looks like is about, one, preempting those first day jitters. What are you doing and what information are you communicating to the individual or to the candidate to help them feel a bit more at ease on their first day? We've all been that new employee in an organization walking in. How are you actually setting them up to understand what the expectations are, understand who they can connect with in the event that they've got a question? How are you facilitating those connections? How are you providing them with the information they need on day one? And how are you normalizing maybe that it's okay and expected that they won't truly understand 100% of that role within the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? I see too many organizations do onboarding and orientation as a 1.5 day. You just talked about, reference checks, making sure they've got all those check boxes from an administrative perspective done to be able to get them into our system and get them part of the payroll. But ultimately, the most important part is that other piece where the first 30, 60, 90 days where they're expected to work and produce. How are you making sure that they've got the tools and supports they need to be able to do that? But also, how are you helping them manage expectations throughout that entire period? That is what will make or break an employee as they're coming in. This is your opportunity during your onboarding, your orientation. This is your opportunity to showcase and to set the stage for the level of communication, for the level of clarity. And I could go through all of our 10 needs that they can expect for the life of their journey with your company. Too many companies fail to spend time actually dissecting the way they're currently doing it and building it up and improving and optimizing it to make sure that it is in fact setting their new employees up for success.
There's so much you can do with onboarding. I think the setting expectations and clarity and purpose, all those good stuff that's in your 10 factors there. There's also the human dynamic relationship one too, right? It's like, let's make a show of welcoming these people in to the team, to the family, to the environment, showcasing why they've arrived and what's fabulous about this new staff member and why the rest of the team is excited to have them on board. There's all that kind of thing that isn't necessarily scripted, but it's more the emotional, cultural base as well. I know that that's something that you would embrace for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I say, I think so. What I mean is, I know so is that culture piece. A lot of people will have a mentorship program. Cool. You've got someone who's going to impart that really crucial job-specific, role-specific technical knowledge. What about a buddy system? The buddy's only job is to impart those unspoken things onto this new employee, is to help them navigate the culture, is to help them understand something as easy as, where do people take their breaks? How often do they take their breaks? Where can I get coffee? What's the unspoken rules of conduct that aren't documented anywhere, but that everyone kind of, these shared commitments, if you will, what does that look like? And having a system, having a program in place to facilitate the transmittance or transmittal, my French might be coming out there, of that kind of information from a culture perspective. Think about showing up at a party. How intimidating is it to show up at a party where you don't know anyone? How could we make that person who is showing up at this party that is our team feel like they're already part of this team? What do we need to do to make sure that they understand what the party's about and how we're going to work through our day together, evening, whatever, to continue that analogy, right? How can we set them up to really, truly feel welcomed and to immediately, as fast as possible, make them feel like they're part of our team?
I love it. I love the whole buddy idea. I think that's fantastic. Okay, I want to mine your brain for this perennial nugget of challenge is how do we keep purpose alive and well in an organization? I was talking to a leader yesterday and he's like, oh, how do I keep people motivated? I'm like, whoa, motivation is linked to purpose for sure. How do you keep that alive and well when people are like getting ground down with their day-to-day tasking, especially if it's like a manual type of job, as this leader was talking about. So they do a lot of object processing and shipping and that kind of stuff. So how do you keep purpose front and center?
I think that purpose needs to be at the heart of all you do. I think that it's important that you not only communicate it, to come back to our communication piece, but you communicate it in a way that resonates with everyone throughout the organization and that you're tailoring the message depending on the different departments in order for them to understand the interconnectedness between the different departments, the interconnectedness between the different roles. I think by helping them understand that broader vision, you say the leader you were talking about was asking about how to keep them motivated. If you're able to ensure that you are showcasing and making purpose front and center of all you do on a daily basis and reminding people of that bigger picture, reminding people of that purpose, that shared commitment, that collective kind of vision, that is what will drive motivation. That will also drive higher resiliency because people are more apt to weather the storm in the face of adversity, in the face of challenges, knowing that, you know, they're part of something bigger than themselves. So I think that motivation, you're right, lies in conveying purpose and making sure that people actually understand it. Now, I didn't really get into very specific ways you can convey purpose, which I'm more than happy to do. Town halls, reminding people of the bigger goals, acknowledging any setbacks, being very transparent, being able to, when I worked in one of the large-scale organizations, the large-scale organizations that I spent 21 years at, did a reverse customer journey. So starting with the customer, all the different roles that had a hand in providing said service or product to the customer and helping people connect the fact their role, regardless if you're in finance and you're working in invoicing and billing or accounts receivable, or if you're at the front line, kind of accepting clients as they come in, working customer service, that you all have a hand in delivering that service and showcasing that journey in order for people to connect to that bigger picture, also highlighting and showcasing the impact and the change or the good that you are bringing to the world in general, and helping people understand how their role and connect how their role is why we're able to do that and have that and make that change in the world.
There's two things I want to pick up, which I think are really helpful from what you're sharing there. One of them is storytelling. So storytelling about whether it's reviewing a failure and saying, oh, we failed to deliver on this. That's a failure type of storytelling. Or a positive one, which is, let's talk about Jennifer, a recent client, and this is their success story. I think that's really helpful. It's like, oh yeah, remember why we're doing this? And to share those anecdotes is really helpful. I like your reverse customer journey and to showcase all the hands, as you said, that have had a contribution to this particular customer's experience. Along with that, I think when we draw it out, make it a visual thing, even diagrammatic, that is also really helpful so people can see their place in the business. And I've talked about this before on the show about visual display of processes and connections is very powerful for people. When you do a mind map of how everybody supports the customer, if you put the customer at the center of the page, then you get a sense of like, yeah, I might be filing papers today or moving boxes today. And that is all in service to this end game of serving this particular customer. That's a very visual, powerful way of keeping it alive. And I like your reverse customer journey. It's good.
I want to yes and that one, which is one of my favorite things, and build on it in getting your team involved in that process, getting them involved in that exercise, having people throughout the organization at the table and helping them go and indicate and kind of jot down on that mind map, where do you think you fit in this? What does your role do? Why do you think it's important? In order for them to really identify and really connect to that bigger purpose.
Absolutely. I think that's so much better, as opposed to the leader going, I've drawn a diagram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've drawn the journey for you, and here it is, which is really completely counterproductive to the intent, right?
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned in your book, I think is really powerful, and I think a lot of leaders struggle to work with their teams on, is our growth plans. Tell me a little bit about growth plans. What are they, and what is the best way to establish and use them?
Okay. So growth plans are about meeting the need for knowing that there's room to grow, right? Growth plans are how you can say, I might be here today. Let's go to our previous example. I'm in customer service today, but I would like to one day ascend to a supervisory role. Growth plans will map out what that looks like and how you get there. It should also highlight the skill level, the competency level for some of those core competencies, for example, in customer service, and map out the growth trajectory, what they need to build and hone in order to set them up to be ready to step into that future role down the line, right? So your growth plan it's really, you go back to high school when you were with your career counselor and they were looking at what you currently had and what you had amassed from an experience and skills perspective up until that day you were sitting in their office. You asked them what you would like to, you spoke with them and had a conversation about what you aspired to one day become. And they would help you map out what you need to take, which courses, which skills, which developmental opportunities need to occur in order for you to be ready to step into that future career. Same thing, but within your company. Why they're important is because it gives people hope. It provides them that line of sight to work towards. It helps them see that the job they're in today is not necessarily the job that they need to still be in if they decide to stick around for another 10 years. It's a way of also attracting that next generation of workers. If I'm applying for two companies, one company is really great they've already mapped out all of the potential growth plans within that company. And company B says, yeah, we have seen people grow within the company, and that's where they leave it. Well, I want to work for the company who already has a plan in place, who can already tell me and assess and benchmark me where I'm at today and tell me what I need to be focusing on in terms of skills development, in terms of competency development, to get me set up to one day start to grow along the way. And I'm not saying that you'll go from customer service straight to supervisory. You can definitely, within your growth plans, have different kind of pit stops along the way, which makes sense. The other thing is to also validate that these growth plans are rooted in actual paths that other employees have taken. So use those different success stories internally in order to showcase to that next generation of workers and attract them to show that so-and-so started out here. We invested in their skills development. We invested in their growth and their evolution. And here they are today. Again, all to meet those needs of not only growth and understanding there's room to grow, but also helping people understand that you're willing to invest in their continuous improvement. You're willing to invest in their evolution within your existing company.
I like that as sample pathways, because what I found often working with leaders who are trying to develop growth plans for people is the hurdle they come up across is they sit down to talk to staff members. They're like, I don't know what I want or where I want to go. They they don't know what's possible for them. A, because they haven't seen a pathway, or B, they aren't self-aware enough or knowledgeable enough to have aspirations. And sometimes it's the leader who needs to plant that seed for them, and say, well, John, I think you're more than capable of becoming a supervisor in the next 6 to 12 months. And this is how we might explore that. This is what I see in you as potential and possibility. And we can get you there. And some people might be gobsmacked by that. It's like they cannot conceive of themselves in a different role. Now, some people are naturally ambitious and have that wired into them. Like, yeah, I want to be head of the company one day. I want to be in charge of this. Others less so.
Yeah. And some are a little too ambitious, where as a manager, as a leader, you need to manage expectations, right? No, rightfully so. And then there's also, and you said at the onset of what your piece there was that you might have to sometimes help them see their potential. I think it's 100% your role to always show them because not everybody wants to grow at the same pace. Not everybody wants to grow and ascend to leadership roles, perhaps as an example, but everybody needs to grow and evolve in some way, shape, or form. So as a leader, you need to help them understand what makes sense for them and curate a plan that aligns with their own aspirations, all the while helping them stretch a bit. And in the case where you've got the overambitious folks who are not necessarily, their aspirations aren't necessarily aligned with their skill set, then it's about having that more sensitive conversation and helping them understand.
Taking them down a peg with their delusions of grandeur.
Yes. Trying to find a more aligned growth plan for them, right? Which I know every leader listening today can probably name one individual throughout their career that was definitely a little willing to bite off more than they can realistically chew.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's ego driven as opposed to purpose driven, which I think is an important distinction in some cases. The other thing I want to highlight with growth plans is there's vertical development and there's horizontal development. I think both are worthy of conversation. So vertical development is expanding scope of responsibilities and accountability and complexity. And typically that's associated with promotions to leadership roles, et cetera. And I think that's sort of what we've been talking about in this context. There's also horizontal development, which is deepening and broadening one's existing skill base. So you become more of a master in that particular area. And I think the horizontal development space has been not as celebrated or as encouraged as it could be in organizations, because not everybody aspires to be a supervisor. What's your experience and perspective on that?
I 100% agree that it's not been embraced to its full potential, because they assume that if they've not expressed interest in another role within the organization, then they can be backburnered in terms of having to invest time and effort into helping them map out that plan, right? Or identify a realistic growth goal. They don't even know, I think, okay, wait a minute, back it up. Back it up a bit. The biggest challenge I've seen is leaders don't even know how to help and coach individuals into understanding how to get from point A to point B, first of all, and to even define what point B might look like. The next one, to your point of not appreciating, horizontal development and the power that can bring, 100%. I think there's only this recognition of a vertical ascension, or else there's nothing else. But that horizontal is often where you'll get the level of confidence. You're able to nurture a level of confidence in the team member that will suddenly have them thinking and considering a vertical. But until you're able to help them recognize their own potential through a series of horizontal developmental opportunities, they won't be open or have the confidence in themselves to even consider setting their sights on something vertical.
That's a nice observation. Thank you, Lori. Now, Lori, are you ready for the Fast Five?
Fast Five. Let's do it.
Okay. What is the future technology you most want right now?
Most want right now is being able to morph and show up in another city within minutes. But I think that's a bit of a tall order. Just to be able to do some in-person training overnight. Yeah, I'm there. But also just leveraging AI. That's what I've been exploring and toying with, and I'm really enjoying it. And leveraging the power of AI to support some of the more administrative parts of our business and some of the more kind of, I guess, routine stuff that doesn't necessarily require a lot of human touch or human input, so that we can be more present and have more bandwidth to invest in the more people-driven stuff.
Two things. You'd be surprised at how many times people say teleportation is the tech that they want right now.
Okay.
So you're in great company there. I think that speaks a lot to the friction that's involved with travel at the moment. And the second thing is, I'm just curious, what AI platforms or processes are you looking at replacing or accentuating with AI?
Okay, so one of the things that I've been toying with, I've got a team, right, who sometimes will work on some of the content pieces for our clients, will work on certain things, as well as some of my social media stuff. And I mean, our team is amazing, but they're not necessarily me. We've discovered this platform, which is pretty powerful, whereby we've uploaded a number of our different pieces that I wrote, as well as the first chapter of our book. Of my book, not our book, my book. And so it really understands my voice. And we've now trained that AI, and basically anything the team builds, they're able to run through and say, give this Lori's voice, and it will rewrite or tweak it. And when I read it, it is 100% exactly how I would have written it. So for me, that kind of stuff where I can have other people working on some of these content pieces, and then we can use and leverage the AI to be able to ensure that there's consistency of brand and consistency of voice and tone is really game changing.
Okay, cool. I like that. All right. Number 2, best tip you ever got for leadership.
Best tip, be human. You're not a boss. You're a human. Be vulnerable, empathize with your employees, understand that and appreciate mistakes, create that safe space. But all of that is part of being human.
Love it.
Don't be a boss, be a human.
Don't be a boss, be a human. Great. Number 3, what's one problem in the workplace you'd love to wave a magic wand and be fixed right now?
I'm going to skip through. Of course, there'd be communication, but I don't think that's a realistic one. I would say lack of accountability. I work a lot with organizations and do some conflict resolution, do some communication stuff, do some leadership development stuff, all of which are often rooted in helping them understand the importance of accountability and providing them with the tools and skills required to hold each other accountable.
Nice. I love it.
So I guess if it was eliminated, it might actually take business away. But then we could spend more time on the whole culture piece.
Yeah. Oh, God, I know. And don't we need that? Number 4, number thumbs is your chance to give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Leader who is doing something fantastic or a leader who is not?
I will give I would say a thumbs up, of course. And it's a leader I recently interviewed for my own podcast, for People Powered Podcast. And the CEO of, oh my God, my memory is like lacking. Her name is Sonia Engel. And she was just one of the most powerful leaders I've ever spoke to. And she described, they're a larger pharma company. They're a laboratory in the US. And so she was explaining their approach to a number of different kind of employee journey key processes. She was talking about how they get visitors within their labs. And she herself, as the CEO, does these visits. She'll walk through with these visitors and does the site visits to show them who does what. She understands and knows the names of all of her employees, understands some of the background of their families and whatnot, and is able to really kind of help each and every one of those team members feel seen, heard, and valued. For me, it's a huge thumbs up. She was a really remarkable leader, and I'll get you, by the time your recording airs, the actual company that she works with, because for some reason, it must be because it's the end of the day as we're recording right now, my brain has completely blanked on that.
That happens to me all the time. No worries. Cool. Well, number 5, what is your favorite leadership book? And given that we're both podcasters, if you have a podcast outside of both of ours? Leadership book or podcast?
I'm going to go with a leadership book rather than the leadership podcast. My all-time favorite leadership book is Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I know it's not a leadership specific in that it's nothing to help you hone your own leadership style, but it's rather helping you understand what are the behaviors, those 5 key behaviors of a high-performing team, so that you can in turn cross-reference your existing team and some of the behaviors are seen showing up in order to identify where you need to intentionally focus some of your attention to improve on the overall kind of performance of the team, but also just to create that highly sought after high-performing team, basically. So 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I also just love that it's written as a fable. And so it's not as dry as some of those leadership development books out there.
Yeah, that is a classic. Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is actually quite a good book. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's pretty fundamental. It starts with some fantastic insights there. And it's not all smooth sailing for the CEO. The new CEO who takes over that team and has to try and pull it all together. Fantastic. Well, that was the Fast 5. The Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast is proudly sponsored by the Amplifiers Academy. It is an online self-paced leadership development program that you can join at any time and progress at your pace. There are very short video lessons, great checklists and resources and recommendations and book summaries, all there to help boost your leadership thinking and abilities. We focus on leading strategy, leading culture, leading change, and leading performance. So if you want a go-to resource that can help boost your strategic abilities immediately, check us out, Amplifiers Academy, on the zoerouth.com website. See you there. All right, Lori, we're coming to the end. Is there a question that you'd love for me to ask you that I haven't asked yet?
Question you'd love for me to ask you? Yes. How can people start, or where do they even start when it comes to figuring out where to focus their energy, time, and resources to ignite their own kind of workplace culture transformation?
That's a great question. So where do people start then?
Okay. Where do they start? They have to start by first figuring out where they're at, figuring out their baseline, right? We have this cool tool that we've recently launched. It's a happiness factor, of course, using the same name as the book, the culture check, 20 yes and no questions, which are basically symptoms that you may or may not resonate with. You answer those 20 yes and no questions, and it'll tell you and rank the 10 needs and your ability to deliver on those 10 needs within your own company, from, how you're doing super well. These needs, you're doing amazing. Keep going. These are the needs that have shown up as requiring maybe having room for improvement. And these are the needs that are likely costing you money by not investing in. So again, all in the spirit of understanding immediately where you might have the most acute need, understanding your baseline, understanding where you're starting out, so that you can intentionally prioritize some of those needs, prioritize some of the initiatives, and figure out where you need to be spending the most focused time and effort at digging a bit deeper. That next step, once you understand which needs need to be fixed, then you need to start to take the time to assess your current experience. How is an employee currently experiencing work within your company? How are they currently experiencing their journey from the moment you're pitching during the interview through to the time they exit? What are some of the processes associated to each of those key touch points throughout that journey? And are you in fact providing for those needs during all of those touch points in the journey? If not, how can you better provide for those needs during onboarding, during orientation, once they're fully trained, as you're continuing to develop them, once you've realized they might be disengaged, all the way through to as they're exiting? How are you always fulfilling those 10 needs in order to ensure that people are feeling happy and fulfilled at work?
Love it. Thank you so much. Lori, this has been fabulous. I love the cut of your jib. I love your passion for everything people-oriented and culture. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Always great chatting with you, Zoe.
It's so much fun talking to a fellow professional who loves the people stuff as much as I do. Lori is fantastic. Some takeaways that I'm taking from this interview. Example growth paths, I think, is a really practical one that all leaders can apply. So showcased example, when Susan started with the organization, she came in here in this particular role, then she did this, then she did that. This is what we did to provide support and growth for her. And this is where she is now. I think that's great. So it's a model for someone to track and to know that they're being supported in the organization. Love that. And the other one I think is really great is having a buddy system for onboarding. It's like, yes, you can show you the policy, your desk, and the emergency exit signs and exits. But what about the unsaid stuff, the culture stuff? So a buddy system is a fabulous idea. All this conversation led me to think about my second book, Moments, Leadership When It Matters Most. And for a lot of what we discussed today, Lori, is a lot about the moments that we create as leaders with others. So this excerpt from Moments is at the back of my book, Creating Connected Leadership. And I say, we need leaders who can connect with others, with themselves, with the whole of humanity and the world. Dun, 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 dun. We need leaders who can make a decision in the moment, who can connect in the moment, who can take action in the moment. We need leaders who choose to treat every moment as a defining moment. It's the small gestures that make a moment a defining moment. It's the smile we give to the busker on the corner. It's when we stop in the hallway and praise someone for a job well done. It's the phone call to say thank you. It's the touch on the shoulder for someone who is caught in grief. It's the hug we give our child when they're distressed over a lost teddy. Every moment is a defining moment. How we show up, what we do, what we say, the energy we radiate, these all define who we are and how we influence our world and thus the world. Leadership is not the big presentation or the speech from the lectern. It's not even the finish line of the race. It's all the tiny moments strung together like beads on a necklace that make the moment beautiful and powerful. Yeah. Sometimes I read back stuff I've written and going, yeah, you go, girl. That sounds fantastic. So that's from my second book, Moments, Leadership When It Matters Most. Coming up next on the show, we've got Jason Walker and Ray Ravarez, and they are talking on artificial intelligence in AR. So artificial intelligence in HR, not AR. AI in HR. So in human resources, what applications can we use to accentuate, facilitate, and make better the HR processes, which I know a lot of leaders struggle with, to be honest. They're either running on the smell of an oily rag and don't have a full complement of HR resources at hand. This can help. In the meantime, did you know you can get a free copy, ebook version of People Stuff, my multi-award-winning book? You just go to zoerouth.com, click on blog, and you can sign up right there for my monthly roundup, and you get a free copy, ebook version of People Stuff. Okay, that's it for now. I hope you have a fabulous week. In the meantime, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. To find out more about leadership of the future or to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.